Hey YouTube, Joeboy here. So,
One Piece chapter 1111 is out. If you guys haven't checked out that chapter yet, I suggest that you do so because I will be spoiling you. Now that you have, let's begin. This is definitely a bittersweet chapter for a number of reasons. The chapter itself was obviously incredible, but it comes with the reveal that One Piece is going on break for 3 weeks. But yeah, if you haven't heard the news yet, the reason for this is essentially because of Toriyama's death. This is what Oda had to say, translated by Archer of the Library of Ohara. Break time. Indeed, I'm indulging in a break for the next 3 Jump issues. Recently, after the passing of Toriyama-sensei, I feel people may be worried about my health more. But to reassure you, I'm not sick right now or anything. It's just that I still want to give myself some time to rest. Think of it as trying to focus on self-maintenance. And I want to give proper thought about what One Piece will be all about, like the busy man I am. So there's actually several translations of this, and Archer's was a little bit different than the others, but my interpretation is that it's not just us that are worried about Oda, it's Oda that is worried about Oda. As far as I understand it, Toriyama's passing was shocking. It was not expected. So Oda's taking the time to get checked up, visit the hospital, and just make sure all the tests are run to avoid something similar happening. And if we're being totally honest, it may not actually be Oda that's responsible for making this decision. It could be people around Oda, like his bosses, Shueisha, his friends, his family, his wife, just because he lives the same lifestyle. But of course, even when Oda isn't working, he is always working. He is always thinking about One Piece, so you can expect that, and a break to give more thought to what's occurring or what will occur can only benefit the story. So you guys already know we are always supportive of Oda breaks. If anyone deserves it, he does. But I feel like under these circumstances, we are extra supportive. Personally, I will be comforted knowing that Oda knows that he is healthy. But break or not, the show will continue. I promise you guys a ton of content, as much as I can possibly produce. Honestly, I kind of feel like this is when YouTubers, their role in the community of creating One Piece content is most important. These 3 weeks are gonna be our era. The great age of One Piece theories. Something like that. So this will begin Sunday or Monday, guys. I've got a theory. It is over 40 minutes long. It might be the greatest theory ever created, and I'm not exaggerating. Certainly the greatest headcanon ever created. When you guys watch it, you'll understand. As a teaser, it is about the moons of One Piece in space. It's that kind of video. So obviously be hyped for it, but promotion aside, this is a chapter review. And we gotta talk about chapter 1111. Look guys, I said this some odd 4 chapters ago, but Oda has written himself into a corner in Egghead where he literally can't lose. It's like, go left, win. Go right, win. Go up, win. Go down, win. There's no wrong choice I feel like he can reasonably make. It's like that Charlie Sheen meme, right? Like, Oda right now is by winning. And I kind of feel like this chapter emphasizes that. People who actually watch the channel will know that this chapter absolutely proved my thoughts over the last 2 or 3 chapters totally wrong. It was totally wrong. Or it certainly seems that way. We got ourselves hyped up of Luffy and the Strads defending the Vegapunk lab as this timer counts down to the reveal of the truth of the world. And in this chapter, it's like, well, Mars just goes right through the barrier. At this point, Luffy doesn't seem aware of Vegapunk's message at all, so why would he even care? Everybody wants to escape, and Luffy seems to be on that agenda. Let's get the hell out of here. So on one hand, it kind of seems like, well, my dreams just got crushed. How do I feel about that? And on the other hand, I'm like, well, that makes a ton of sense to me. I too would be partaking in the running. We about to Forrest Gump this shit. I just felt like running. So could this be some kind of fake out? Absolutely it could be. Could it be that Luffy actually isn't allowed to escape? So essentially he has to fight for the entire countdown. Absolutely, that could be the case. But basically no matter what happens, I feel like I would probably love it. But maybe we should actually clarify this because this is not entirely true. I want to throw one condition onto the events in Egghead, okay? And guys, I know this is setting myself up for failure. This could backfire spectacularly. But you guys know I always have been and I always will be honest with you. We'll praise One Piece when it's great and we'll criticize it when it's not. The art of great storytelling is creating expectations intentionally and then meeting or surpassing them. Look, if anybody tells you that they go through the story and they don't have expectations, they are either insane or they are lying. Because a story that totally defies any expectations you could possibly have would be utter chaos, like a nonsensical mushroom trip. Any story with any organization to it whatsoever fundamentally creates some kind of expectation. So as an author, you need to be aware of this. For instance, right, Oda has very clearly set the expectation here in Egghead that Vegapunk will reveal the truth whatever that might be. Now, of course, some of us out here are special, like myself, and sometimes your expectations can get a little bit wild, and so you gotta bear in mind, like, when what you're thinking isn't anywhere close to reality. You kinda gotta be able to judge that for yourself. But the idea is that once Vegapunk says this, it then plants the idea in readers' minds that he will reveal the truth, and they get excited about it. Now, you don't actually have to reveal the truth. Again, whatever the hell that is specifically. But you have to ensure that whatever ends up happening meets this same level of excitement that you have created. Because otherwise, you have set your readers up for disappointment. It's like it's Christmas, right? You are a kid and you are expecting a present. Something really good is gonna happen. And then your parents, they say, oh wow, this one particular toy. We know that you want that. Expectation has been created. You better get that, or something as good as that, or better, period. Or you will be disappointed. But bear in mind that this is a subjective experience. So for me, I always try to be objective. Even if I don't necessarily like something as much as something else, I always want to try and see things from Oda's perspective, and also from the perspective of other fans. Is he giving us something that he may think is just as good as something else, is just as valid? I may personally be disappointed, but I can't objectively criticize it. Anyway, that was a really long rant. The point is that something huge has to happen at the end of Egghead. I have to be able to rationalize it as a huge thing. So as an example, if the Strats manage to escape the Gorosei in the next chapter, they make it onto the giant ship sails away, the Gorosei then destroy the lab, and we get no message, right? Then that would obviously be trash. So maybe if Oda goes 56 degrees diagonally, okay, then it's not winning. But perhaps the easier way to have this conversation is choosing to not reveal Vegapunk's message is, at the very least, extremely risky. This is an easy dub. Sometimes the game is not all that difficult. Promise Vegapunk's message, fans get hype. Give Vegapunk's message, fans are satisfied. The logic of winning. So as we see in the chapter, Mars breaks into the labosphere, right? It seems like they will be able to destroy the lab, if they wanted to, before the countdown ended, even though he hasn't found the right button to press yet. So I would say that it is now extremely likely, following the logic of winning, that they really have no chance of stopping Vegapunk's message, because it is not tied to the lab at all. Which is actually something that we've already speculated, video link in the description below. But yeah, I kind of feel like a hilarious thing that Oda could do that is actually foreshadowed is, you set up the timer, and Vegapunk, being the genius he is, he just knew that his enemies would try to infiltrate his lab given this time frame. So he kind of encouraged it, right? All of his enemies go into the lab. We're all expecting them to either find the button or destroy it entirely. But if you guys remember from Frankie during the time skip, he visited one of Vegapunk's labs, and there was a pretty clearly marked self-destruct button. I would assume that Egghead, the lab itself, has the ability to self-destruct. So it'd be actually hilarious with like 30 seconds left in the timer, the whole lab just explodes with all of the Gorosei inside. Big brain energy. Vegapunk just created a way for all of his people and maybe his alters to escape. But anyway, on a more serious note, I felt like the theme of this chapter had a lot to do about the will to win, or willpower itself. Like following the events of the last chapter, we saw Zoro cut Lucci, and then we panned to the beginning of this chapter, and Lucci is defeated, but he's still standing. He's trying to move, he simply can't. And this is very obviously intended to contrast Kizaru, who we see later in the chapter, probably with the ability to move, but he lacks the will to. The Marines want to treat Kizaru's wound, but they can't because it's in his heart. Actually rethinking about this, maybe the theme of the chapter is wounds. Because at the end of the chapter, we see it's revealed that the Iron Giant has woken up. So its prior state was just the same as both Lucci and Kizaru in this chapter. It couldn't move. And maybe before we could have thought it to be a physical wound, similar to Lucci's. It certainly looks pretty beat up. It's almost as if it died. But the first thing that we see it say is, "I'm sorry, Joy Boy." And you realize it's not all that different from Kizaru. Just the same as the Iron Robot, right? Kizaru's power source ran out, and that power source was willpower, a wound to the heart. The last thing that this robot seems to remember is some failure for Joy Boy, who it seems to care about. I don't know if this is precisely the case, or this is a very artistic take about everything that's going on, but suddenly Joy Boy is here again, and the robot's heart restarts. Its will to continue returns, and it can move. Do you guys see what I'm cooking up here? Does this make any sense at all? Are these comparisons, like, maybe we should throw another Charlie Sheen meme in this. You guys try to borrow borrow Oda's brain for like 10 seconds and find out, ooh, dude, unplug that bastard. Too much. Because it just like fires in a way that isn't of this terrestrial realm. End quote. But yeah, I'm not really saying to take all of this literally, but I feel like these are some of the thoughts that are behind the scenes of the creation of this chapter, where Oda decided to specifically focus on and highlight. He absolutely made sure that you understood that Lucci had something that he was actually fighting for. You know, speaking of bad takes that we had earlier in the arc, we wondered if there was ever going to be a point where Lucci would turn against the government or, you know, at some point do something for himself. But I would say by now it is clear that he is all in. But is it because he believes in the government? I feel like that's still unclear. More so, I got the impression in this chapter that what Lucci believes in as far as the government is concerned is their power. Specifically, their power to be able to harm his friends. This is a thought which never, ever, ever occurred to me, and I'm so glad that Oda thought it up. You realize that Lucci has formed his own little pirate crew, and he's the captain. And just the same as Luffy, his main responsibility, his main duty is protecting them. And like I said, the impression that I got is that Lucci is protecting his crew by making sure that he follows his orders. Because the greatest threat, the thing that he might fear most, is the government or the Gorosei. Maybe this explains why Lucci joined CP0. It was because he believed that they would never be able to escape the government, so long as they were his enemy. But either way, the only thing that I can definitely tell you is that if you compare the Rob Lucci that we were first introduced to in Water 7 to this Rob Lucci, they have changed. Pretty freaking fundamentally. The Rob Lucci of the past wouldn't have tolerated any sort of weaknesses, and if another member had abandoned their duty, he probably would have killed them himself. But in this arc, Kaku basically abandoned his duty. And it seems like Lucci's goal here is to protect him from his own weakness. So my guess is that losing has had a profound effect on Rob Lucci. And through all of this, he has found his sort of treasure which he wants to protect. And just like this is the case for every other character in the story, including the Strats, having something that he wants to protect has made him stronger and given him the will to surpass his limits. Now with Kizaru, you can apply this oppositely. Kizaru has lost the things that he would like to protect. Obviously talking about Vegapunk and Kuma, but here we're also talking about the world government and the Marines themselves. He's effectively in a similar state as Luffy in Sabaody when Luffy lost his crew, which is just an incredible inversion of Sabaody, which we've talked about as being a parallel to this arc on many occasions. Kizaru is a defeated man. He lost his treasure and has now lost the will to fight. But anyway, going back to Luffy, we got some awesome action once again between him and with the Giants against Warcree. Remember when people told you that Luffy, even as the sun god Nika, was made out of rubber? Yeah, no. Guys, rubber does not allow your scars to literally jump off your body. To me, this is another reminder of the theory that in Gear 5th, Luffy is capable of doing anything that he can imagine. I believe that his body can have any property that he can imagine, can take any shape or form that he can imagine. I think he's only beginning to tap into what he can potentially do. Also, the whole thing was absolutely hilarious. And that in and of itself is kind of fascinating, right? Like, we kind of thought that maybe the tension would start to ramp up the feeling of impending doom, but that's not really the impression that I got of the chapter. Yes, the Gorosei are incredibly strong and scary. Yes, this is also true of Warcree. But it still feels like Luffy, the Strats, and allies are in control, and they have an achievable objective. Especially now that I have less fear of needing to protect the lab because the message will survive. It's really and truly about escaping as fast as possible, and I do think that they can do that. And it probably helps that the Iron Giant has made an appearance. So effectively, the Iron Giant is like Lucci, right? It was defeated sometime in the past, was unable to move, but now that Joy Boy has appeared, right, its will is probably to protect him, to save his friend. But another parallel that you should probably throw into all of this is the Iron Giant is also very similar to Kuma. Like Kuma, it is essentially already dead. They also happen to be robots. But dead or not, this lasting will remains. Guys, I am genuinely hyped to see what this robot can do. I am expecting something awesome. This is the time in the story where Oda can really hype up the Void Century and what they could do technologically. And I just love how all of the ghosts of the world government's past seem to be coming back to haunt them. But I also think it would be criminal if I didn't bring up the Giants more specifically. You know, some people might have an issue with this, seeing Dory and Brogy in the pre-time skip and seeing them fight 2 vs 1 against a Gorosei here in the present story. but this almost feels necessary to some extent in order to justify how much Oda has hyped up Elbaf. Elbaf was an unconquerable island, and this is why. Basically, my headcanon is that Dory and Brogy were training for 100 straight years, every day nonstop. That made them stronger, and we can see that now given that they've had some time to rest. These are truly some of the greatest warriors on the planet. But I also think that you should bear in mind that if Luffy was not here, they would probably be defeated rather easily by the Gorosei, depending on the matchup, in large part due to their devil fruit powers. I'm pretty sure that that poison would have been fatal had Luffy not baseball bat home runned it away. And of course it can't be forgotten because Luffy mentioned it in the story that also the Gorosei are immortal. Like, even if you were to damage them, they would likely heal, which would definitely be a problem in any long-term fight. But yeah, Oda emphasized that in the chapter, and the Giants explained that this was not a power that they were aware of, further confirming that the Gorosei are something very strange. But all this being said, the danger is absolutely not gone yet, and you shouldn't be thinking that we've already won, because there is still a ton of things which could happen, not least of which is the Marines, the Vice Admirals which remain. So I can't wait to see Oda's vision for how all of this is going to end. But yeah, I suppose that was everything that I wanted to talk about the chapter, I think. As always, I'm curious as to what you guys think, whether you know something from the chapter that I might have missed. Just share your thoughts. If you're interested in my book, The Booms, link will be in the description. Remember to like the video, subscribe, click the bell to be notified, join the squad, and as always guys, have a wonderful day.